sbagliata, messa fuori, c'è Pirlo, ancora Pirlo di tacco, tiro, gol! Grosso, gol di Grosso, manca un minuto, gol di Grosso.
Hello and welcome back to the Milan Talk podcast. I'm your host, Samik Paul, and I have to say it feels good to be back. Glad to have you back tuning in. Apologies for the absence across the summer, but looking forward to providing you with a lot of content across the new season. For those that didn't see the plan of action on Twitter, the idea is to have a weekly Wednesday pod covering all the big talking points, game previews ahead of the weekend, and then of course the post-match analysis and ratings pod as usual. More on that later, but we've got a lot to get through today, so your order of play is as follows. I'll be talking about the Bonucci, Caldara, Higuain deal first up. Where else could we start? From that, I'll discuss the transition from the Young Hong Lee era to Elliott over the summer, as well as analysing our 3 new signings so far, along with those who should be axed from the current squad. To round things off, there are the poll results and of course your questions, but let's dive straight into the deal that we're all talking about online, and that is of course the Caldara, Bonucci, Higuain deal. Now I want to take it from a more rounded perspective because I believe both clubs win in this deal, but obviously from our perspective to begin with, I think this is such a brilliant bit of business from Leonardo. We're getting a long-term replacement for Bonucci and Caldara, 24 years old. Romagnoli's 23, and we could potentially be looking at the heart of our defence sorted for the next decade if we continue to move in the right direction. Caldara is well established in Italy. He's obviously played a lot of games for Atalanta. He's got European experience with them as well. So I think he's ready to step in immediately and make a massive impact. Romagnoli, we've all seen the development and the maturity in his game that he's developed over the last couple of years, getting better and better. And to kind of put them together with potentially even Donnarumma behind them for a number of years to come. You've got the likes of Conti, Calabria, Rodriguez, of course, as well. There's lots to be happy with in terms of how our defence can look. Now, I get the argument that losing Bonucci, we obviously lose leadership, experience, and putting aside the first few months of the last season where he struggled badly, there were definite improvements and positive signs between him and Romagnoli in the second half of last season. So to break that up is a bit of a disappointment, yes. And, for all the fanfare that he arrived to last summer, to see him just go after 1 year is a bit disappointing. And obviously being our captain for the last year as well. But overall, I think if he wants to go back to Juve and we are losing him, the stance that Milan have had to say Caldara or no deal has been genius for me. So I think on the defensive side of things, I think this is a brilliant move for us. On top of that, we're going to get a proven goal scorer who's got double digits in goals for the last 10 seasons. 8 of those, he's got more than 20 goals. And Higuain, yes, he's got his critics, and we all know about how he's not performed in the big games, both on the international stage and the club stage in the past. But we're talking about a proven goal scorer, something that we desperately need in this side. Yes, Cotrone, hopefully he continues to develop and becomes that consistent goal scorer for us as well. Silva struggled last season. Whether he can kick on this season remains to be seen. Hopefully Kalinic goes along with Bacca. So that really does, leave a question mark over where the goals are going to come from. Higuain, 31 in December, of course. A lot of money. I think it's 18 million euros on the initial loan deal, then 36 million euros on top of that at the end, right to buy. So it is a lot of money. But if we can get 2-3 seasons out of him where he's scoring 20 goals or more, and gets us back into the Champions League more importantly, then you've got to look at it and say it's a solution to a problem and it's moving us in the right direction. So for me, I think this is a genius move. Talk, again, it's dragged on a bit longer than all of us would have liked. There's talk that it's going to be wrapped up tonight, so it might even be official by the time this pod comes out. If it does, we're winning the league, guys. It's all settled. Juve might as well hand it over now. But in all seriousness, it's a great deal for us and we've got to be happy. Hopefully, there are still missing pieces to be added. We need to see the midfield bolstered. We need a pacey winger to add a different dynamic in the final third. So this doesn't solve everything by no means, but for me, it makes us stronger. It's a very good replacement for Bonucci, a long-term vision as well. And I couldn't be more happy with it. So definitely a good deal. And again, yes, I know it's a Milan podcast, but for me, just looking at it from a Juve perspective, they're losing a future star and they're losing their top goal scorer. But they've obviously opened up this window now of winning the Champions League by signing Ronaldo. And to add Bonucci's leadership, his experience at the back, I think it's a win-now approach. And for me, I don't really see, yes, okay, circumstances he left in and fans have obviously got an issue with that. But I think if he helps them win the Champions League this season, then no one's going to remember that. So for me, I think both teams win. players included as well. So let's just get it wrapped up now and sorted. And I think it's a massive move for Milan and a really positive one. So all good. Moving on to the Yonghong Lee situation. As we all know by now, that it's obviously been the club's ownership has been passed on to Elliott. Continued issues with Lee. Problems from the get-go. We all had our question marks, whether it was the uncertainty over his finances, how much money he actually had, missing deadlines on payments, just constant problems with Lee. And then we, of course, had the ban from Europe, which stemmed from all those question marks and uncertainty. We've now got a respected ownership in place, albeit I think their motives are different. We're looking at a hedge fund who are probably looking to protect their investment. They want to see it grow and then sell it on in the long-term future. So yes, they've got their own motives, but as long as we continue to move in the right direction as a club, I don't really see the issue. So we've had positive signs so far. They've helped obviously with UEFA and the Court of Arbitration, getting us back into the Europa League with the ban overturned. Leonardo's come into place and he's obviously working wonders by the looks of it with this deal that we've been talking about. And they seem committed. You know, they came out in support of Gattuso with their initial statement. They obviously want to see the club improve, grow, see the value grow and the brand improve. So everything's moving in the right direction for me. And I think that even if it's a short-term model, it's better than what we had when we had Lee at the helm. So definite positive signs off the pitch this summer. I know we've had frustrations in the transfer market, but at least we can say that that's kind of sorted to the point where we're on the right track now. So I'm happy with that. See, there's been a bit of criticism going towards Forza and Mirabelli in this as well. I think we'll all remember last summer fondly, the way that we continue to sign exciting, young, talented players. Hopefully, some of them will continue to improve. We've seen Çalhanoğlu come a long way from when he first started to struggle in the starting lineup. Hopefully, the likes of Silva, Musacchio, and how the others have big roles to play moving forward. But again, the way that Leonardo started in the position and the way that he's kind of almost reflected what the fans want is really impressive. Whether or not Mirabelli and Fasone got that. The transparency was fantastic. We obviously kept up to date with everything that was happening, but I think we're a much steadier and in a more reliable situation now under Elliott and Leonardo. So I think, again, it's a positive sign. It's a step in the right direction, and overall, I think we can all be content with how the ownership situation has played out. Just touching on those new signings as well then. So obviously we've been limited to 3 new signings, all on free transfers. Pepe Reina's joined us from Napoli. I think the initial question mark was over whether or not he'd be a replacement for Donnarumma. Donnarumma's of course still at the club, so assuming that he's going to stay now before the deadline, Reina is an absolutely solid backup. He offers serious competition, so Donnarumma's going to have to keep up his game. Those mistakes creep in again, and I think Reina's going to be knocking on the door, potentially replacing him in the starting lineup. So I think it's a sensible addition, and obviously the experience that he can pass on. He's had great spells with Liverpool, Bayern Munich, Napoli of course as well, but I think he can pass on a lot to Donnarumma to improve his game and mature him, so I think it's a good signing there. Strinic has come in, again, same kind of situation for Rodriguez. He provides solid backup, he's got good competition for all places now. I think it should be a signal to get rid of Antonelli finally. I know Antonelli again has got his supporters if you like, but for me I think he's gone past the point of being a useful member of the squad. He's just kind of making up the numbers. So I think the quicker that we can get him out the door, the better. And then, of course, Halilovic has joined as well. Again, he's joined on a free, so it's not really much of a gamble, but it's kind of a time for redemption for him. I think this is a massive opportunity. Barcelona obviously saw something in his talent initially to take him on. Didn't work out at the new camp. So now this is another opportunity for him to shine at a big club. And fingers crossed he can do it. I mean, whether it's playing on the right wing, giving Suso competition, whether it's playing on the right side of the midfield, whatever position Gattuso gives him, I'd just like to see him make a positive impact and give us that kind of different dynamic. He's obviously got a bit of a change of pace to him. He's got trickery, technical quality on the ball. So fingers crossed we get to see all that. And he turns out to be a successful addition to the squad. In terms of those players that can be deemed surplus to requirements, I think it is time now for Antonelli, Kalinic, Gomez, Montalivo, Bertolacci and Bacca to go. Again, Antonelli, I don't really see what kind of role he has moving forward. Kalinic, don't think there's any real kind of explanation needed, the way that we saw him struggle last season. Gomez, just completely pointless having him around. Competition for places isn't going to get any easier for him. If Caldara replaces Bonucci, he's still got Caldara, Romagnoli, Musacchio, Zapata ahead of him. So really, it's just a waste of space to have him around in the squad. Montolivo was left behind on the tour. That was reported as an indication that he doesn't feature in Gattuso's plans. Whether that is still the case remains to be seen, but ideally, again, I don't see the use that he has in the squad anymore apart from his experience and leadership, but that's not enough for me to keep him around. Bertolacci, I just don't see him fitting into any sort of top team. The style of play that he has, the game that he has, I don't think he'll ever come up against another quality midfielder and win that midfield battle. I just don't think he's got the characteristics, the speed, the technical quality to really come out on top. So for me, again, if we can get a good deal for him, then he's got to be out the exit door. And then finally, Bacca, I think he's got to go. Signs and the comments coming out of him basically saying that he wants to return to Spain. If you don't want to be at Milan, then just that's the biggest indication yet to just get rid. If the interest there from Villarreal, then fantastic. Just get a deal done and get him out. I do see the argument. I know some people have argued on Twitter that he can score goals. He's got the service. He can be a very useful squad player, especially if we're competing on multiple fronts next season. But for me, if the desire's not there, he's obviously struggled in the past. I think that's enough for me to say as well for him to leave. So let's see if that happens. But particularly as well with Higuain coming in, do we need to sell Kalinic and Bacca to kind of make up and balance the books? If so, I'd prefer to see those two leave than Silva. So again, it all points to Bacca leaving, and let's just hope that happens. Otherwise, we could end up sacrificing a player like Silva, who could have yet plenty more to come, and with Higuain next to him, you never know what he could provide. So let's hope it pans out the way that we want it. On to the poll results. Various topics over the last couple of weeks, from managerial changes, from the impact Elliott has made, to Bonucci leaving, all sorts coming up. So to begin with, I asked the question, speculation has linked Antonio Conte with the Milan job. Who would you prefer to see at the helm? Thankfully, 71% of you said Gattuso, 29% said Conte. For me, I think Gattuso is the right man for the job. He's obviously got the club close to his heart. He showed a lot last season. I think we all had our question marks over him in terms of, yes, he could provide the grit and the determination and motivate the players on a personal basis, but has he got the tactical know-how to go up against vastly more experienced managers and coaches and come out on top? I think he exceeded expectations for me in that regard, and for me, he's got to be given the opportunity now to continue to build on the good work he did last season and hopefully takes us forward. In terms of Conte, yes, there is an argument to be made that he's got the CV, he's won at Juve, he's won at Chelsea, impressed as Italy boss. So yes, and he is a bigger name, so maybe that could help with attracting bigger names in the transfer market. But we're talking about someone that's not invested in the club as Gattuso is. So if things get difficult, is Conte going to be the kind of man to walk away? Gattuso, I don't think will ever walk away until he's sacked. Maybe that could be his downfall, I don't know. But I'd rather have someone that's got the passion and the belief in the club and knows the culture and knows it from top to bottom, managing the side, rather than Conte coming in and potentially having a short-term stay before moving on to something else. So for me, I think Gattuso has got to be the man for the job, and 71% of you agree with me. And I think, based on what we've heard from Leonardo and from Elliott, I think that's the way it's going to go. So let's hope that Rino stays in his job. The next one was from appointing Leonardo to the vision that they've outlined since they took control from Yong-Hong Lee. Are you confident in Elliott management to lead us forward? A massive 94% of you said yes, 6% said no. Again, to reiterate the kind of points that I was making earlier, what they've done so far has been very impressive. They've got the European ban overturned. They look like they know what they're doing in the transfer market. Leonardo's come in and he's hopefully going to wrap this deal up, the swap deal with Juve. So all the signs are positive, and the statement that they released supporting Gattuso, ensuring that they were looking at the long-term vision and planning, it all sounds great. We've got to bear in mind that they do have their own motives, like I mentioned earlier. They are a hedge fund. They do want to see the value of Milan grow. So whether that includes buying younger players and developing them, or seeing Milan succeed only to kind of sell us on for a bigger profit 3 years, 4 years down the line, there is that sort of motive that we need to keep in the back of our heads about Elliott. But as I said earlier, much better situation than we were with Yong-Hong Lee. So I agree with 94% of you, has to be positive about Elliott. The next one, should Leonardo Bonucci leave? Who should get the captaincy next? 70% of you said Romagnoli, 22% of you said Bonaventura, 6% said Biglia, and 2% said other. Again, I have to agree with your votes. Romagnoli has to get the captaincy. I think Bonaventura can make a very, very strong case for it, but if you're talking about choosing a captain that's going to be a regular starter, a player who's continued to grow and mature into a leader of this team, then it all points to Romagnoli. He's got so much more to give. He's going to improve even more. He's kind of overcome his injury issues. There was a couple of things in the last couple of seasons where you kind of feared that he might be one of those brittle kind of players who has to manage himself to avoid the injuries. But I think he had a solid run last year, and hopefully that continues. But for me, player in the heart of the defence, leading from the back, I think he deserves it. He's been consistently one of our best players for the last 2 seasons. So for me, I think, 70% of you with Romagnoli completely agreed. And then the final one, with regards to the Bonucci-Caldara swap, Higuain deal, should it go through, how would it impact your hopes for next season? 60% of you said top 4, 38% of you said still missing key pieces, and 2% said have doubts Juve win this deal. Again, I'm going to have to go with the 60% and say the top 4. I think ultimately, even though the Bonucci deal is just a straight swap for a younger and potentially, hopefully, a better player, Higuain, if he does manage to contribute those 15, 20 goals plus next season, that could potentially, I'm not saying it definitely will, but I'm saying it potentially could bridge that gap between us and the top 4. I think it makes a massive difference to the way that we play. I think if you know you've got a prolific striker who will finish those chances off, it will hopefully inspire the likes of Suso and Calhanoglu to continue to provide that service, and Higuain will feed off it. And I think if you add 15, 20 goals to this team, looking at other players like Kessie, Calhanoglu and Suso to step up and continue to improve as well. Let's not just say, Higuain's sort of signed, he's going to solve it, just give him the ball and he'll score 20 goals. No, we have to see improvement from all these other players as well. So add that all together, and I think we do have what we need to launch a proper assault on the top 4. But I agree that 38% of you saying that we still miss key pieces. Yes, we do need a pacey winger, give us a different dynamic and option in the final third. Yes, we do need rotation and reinforcements in midfield. So yeah, there's still work to be done, but I think if this deal goes through, which hopefully it has by now, then I think we're in a much stronger position to get to that top 4 than we were last season. So let's see how that pans out. On to your questions. First up, Michael Rossi on Facebook. I want to believe the Caldara will equal or better Bonucci's performances, but I have my doubts. What are your thoughts? I agree and I share your doubts to an extent, Michael. I think, yes, we're swapping an experienced international with a winning pedigree who came in last season, raised expectations and all of our hopes that we could achieve more. We will miss those characteristics. I think it is a blow to lose him, but ultimately, I think Caldara, again, he's still 24. He's going to grow, he's going to mature, he's going to improve and do that hopefully alongside Romagnoli. But I think the experience that he's got already, that he's attained with Atalanta, both domestically and in Europe, I think he's more than capable of coming straight into the starting lineup, filling that void and actually doing a really good job of it. So, let's hope that it works even better. The relationship between Romagnoli and Caldara, they develop a real chemistry and they can complement each other well. And then, we could be in business. So I think you're right to have your doubts. I think they're 2 different players in that sense. And obviously Bonucci's further along in his career and he's impressed, but I think Caldara will get there. So hopefully let's see how that develops. Amiro Delgado on Facebook. Why is Milan so obsessed to buy a bona fide top striker when we have a prospect like Cutrone and even Silva for that matter? I'd prefer to prioritise a left winger instead, especially since the team lacked pace last season. Amiro, 100% echo your point about prioritising a left winger. And also about lacking pace. I think those 2 very valid points, and we definitely need to address those before the transfer deadline. What I will say is, though, I think we do need a top-class striker. I don't think we can rely on Cutrone to get 15, 20 goals next season and think that's going to solve all our problems. Silva, again, yes, I agree with you. I would like to see him get more minutes, more opportunities, and hopefully kick on now that he's had 12 months to settle at the club. But again, it's a gamble. If he doesn't deliver and we're stuck in November where we're still struggling to score goals consistently, then we'll all be screaming for a top-class striker. So I think if this Higuain deal's presented itself, we've got to take it with both hands and we've got to run with it. So I agree with your points to an extent, but I do believe we definitely need a top striker, and then hopefully we can add the winger and the midfielder as well. At Samir Mohammed 72 on Twitter, if the Higuain Caldara deal goes through with Bernard coming in as well, where do you see us finishing? Have a feeling if we made it to the Champions League and won the Coppa Italia, Bonucci would have stayed. Formation you'd like to see and thoughts on the transfer we've made so far. So like I said, I think I agree with the poll results. I think especially if we make the Higuain Caldara deal and then Bernard comes in as well to give us that option, that pacey option on the wing. Again, I'm not going to lie and say that I've seen lots of him. I think the most I've seen of him was the glimpses that we got at the World Cup in 2014, I think, when Brazil hosted it. I think he was involved in that squad. I saw bits of him there. And then obviously I've seen him at times with Shakhtar in the Champions League, but not enough to formulate a proper opinion on him, whether or not he's the absolute solution. But I think they're obviously going to address the key areas in our squad that need to be addressed. And I think, like I said, I think that's potentially enough to bridge the gap to get to the top four. But again, we need to round it off a little bit more, get more if we can before the deadline, and then I'll be much more confident. But I think the top four is 100% an achievable objective this season. Agree with you. I think Bonucci probably wouldn't be pining for that return to Juve. I don't know what the person. Maybe there's personal reasons. Maybe his family have moved back to Turin. Maybe he wants to go back to Turin away from footballing reasons, and that's why both clubs are more inclined to kind of give him what he wants. But I think if we got into the top four and we won the Coppa Italia, maybe things could have been different. But happy about the fact that we're getting Caldara in this deal and a long-term kind of plan if that kind of goes through. So we'll have to see it from both angles. The formation I would like to see. Now, I think the formation that we're probably going to go with is a 4-3-3. I don't think much is going to change. I think Gattuso will stick with Higuain leading the line up top, Suso and Çalhanoğlu on the wings, and then obviously the three-man in the middle. He'll obviously have the option, of course, we're going two up top, and then maybe even having Çalhanoğlu linking the lines between the two, which is what I'd like to see. But for me, I think we're kind of built in the sense to go with a 4-3-3 still. And I think that's what we'll go with. So a 4-3-1-2 would probably suit me a bit better, I think. But we'll have to wait and see. I think the 4-3-3 is the way it's going to go. And then thoughts on the transfers we've made. Yeah, again, like I mentioned earlier, I think they're all solid acquisitions. I think they all have their purpose. Reina coming in, offering proper competition for Donnarumma. Strinic, likewise, for Rodriguez, who we all kind of got a little bit frustrated with and had question marks about last season. So I think that's a sensible addition as well. And then Halilovic, hopefully it comes off. I think they've taken a gamble, but it could turn out to be a pretty positive one. So fingers crossed on that one. At the Milanisti 11, as for the Bonucci saga, it's clear that his will is to return to Juve. The only thing that confuses me is why he joined us in the first place. Did he expect to win the Scudetto and be back in the Champions League competing in one season? Surprises me considering he seemed a dedicated captain. Yeah, I mean, when it first broke, I don't think many of us believed it, to be quite honest. I thought, Bonucci, why would he want to return after just a season? He seems settled, he seems happy. He's bought into the project. He was one of the first people to kind of hit Twitter when we got the ban in Europe overturned, and he was like, yep, got back what we achieved on the pitch. All the pictures of the pre-season tour, he seemed pretty happy. Didn't seem like he was someone pining for a move away. He wasn't miserable. So it was all a bit weird at first, but obviously we now know that he does want that move back to Juve. I don't really know what his expectations were, to be quite honest. I think maybe he did think we were going to be ultra ambitious and get back into the Champions League and be challenging for major honours, but obviously didn't pan out that way. And then, like Samir said as well, I think, if things had turned out differently last season, we might not even be considering this deal. So everything happens for a reason, though. So let's just see if it turns out to be the best reason for us. He was a dedicated captain. Obviously, we all saw the team talks before games and the messages he sent out. I think he was dedicated for the season. I don't question his commitment or anything for one bit, over the last 10 months. But if he wants to leave, he wants to leave, and we've got to make the most of it, which I hopefully think we are doing. At Borry Keynes on Twitter, do you think we have a chance to top four with the current players we have, assuming that the triple deal goes through? Should Milan not be focusing more on wingers to serve as our strikers, and are there any good wingers being linked with Milan? Again, Borry, I think this reflects the kind of consensus that everyone's kind of raising at this point is, as far as the top four is concerned, again, like I said earlier, I think I do believe we can get the top four. Goals from Higuain, the solidity that Caldara can offer next to Romagnoli, I think it's an improvement on what we had last season, and it kind of can take us a step closer. But yes, I agree. We should be focusing on a winger. We have to bring in a winger. Whether I don't really care if it's a free, if we, it's kind of a short-term loan deal, whether it's something. We need a winger to offer that pace in the team. So yes, I agree. There's definitely more focus needed elsewhere after this deal gets wrapped up. As far as good wingers go that are being linked with us, it's gone very, very quiet. I think Memphis Depay was the one that was a very popular choice. I would have been very happy with him coming in, especially after his bounce back season with Lyon. But that has gone extremely quiet over the last month or so. But yeah, I mean, there's been various names linked with the club, but Bernard seems to be the one that's being the most heavily linked at the moment. I think that is potentially the road that we're going down, but we'll have to see how that pans out. But certainly a winger is needed, and let's hope that one arrives before the deadline. At Mr. GL, do you think Locatelli will take a step up this year? When Conte is fully fit, how do you see him fitting into the team? How long do you think Elliott will hold on to Milan? Do you think Kalinic and Bacca will be offloaded this summer? Moz also adds he's sorry, just excited to have Milan Talk back. Thank you, Moz. Appreciate the support, and you can keep the questions coming in, my man. Right, so let's break this down. Do you think Locatelli will take a step up this year? Only if he's given the opportunities, Moz. I think we're still stuck in the same situation where it all depends on what Gattuso is going to do. Is he going to rely heavily on Biglia again? I think Locatelli needs to take on responsibility as well. He needs to show development. He needs to show maturity in his game. I think it's all well and good us sitting here, praising him and saying, yes, he's a youth prospect. He's come through the ranks. We all want him to succeed at Milan. But if he doesn't show the improvement and the kind of maturity to suggest to Gattuso that he warrants a place in the team, then I can't continue to sit here and say I want Locatelli in the team. If he doesn't deserve it, he doesn't deserve it. But at the same time, I think, like I've mentioned countless occasions last season, I think he has an all-round set of skills that are better than Biglia. I think Biglia offers the experience and the defensive coverage in front of the defence better than Locatelli does. But in terms of playing an expansive style of football, giving us more attacking options, moving us up the pitch quicker, I think Locatelli ticks more boxes in that sense. So whether he's used in certain situations where we know we're going to dominate possession, I think that's probably the most sensible situation to use him in. But yes, I think if he needs to take the step up, I think is the bigger point to make. I think if he doesn't make it this season, then the transfer speculation continues to link him with a loan exit, with a permanent exit. So I think that will only grow if he doesn't make a big impact this season. So yes, I think the time is now or never, essentially. In terms of Conte, when he's fully fit, how do you see him fitting in the team? What I would like to see is probably Conte coming back in at right back and then Calabria moved on to the left. I think Calabria has had trouble adapting to that role because it's obviously not his natural role, but I think as he continues to improve, I think he might be able to show that versatility in his game to play that role, and then Conte gets his favoured right back role. Let's just hope that he comes back stronger from these injuries because they're two very serious setbacks. I just want to see him get a full he's not going to get a full pre-season under his belt, but I want to see him have a full recovery, get his match fitness back, and then get back into the team and play regularly, and then we'll take it from there to see how we can judge him, whether or not he's still the same player, whether he's can continue to grow and improve. But yes, I would like to see him come back at right back and then Calabria shift over to the left if possible. How long do you think Elliott will hold on to Milan? I think the consensus when they first kind of took over was that they had a 3-year plan in mind. Now, they've not confirmed that, but I think we're going to be looking at something similar to that. In that 3-year span, they'll undoubtedly be hoping that Milan get back into the Champions League, that the level of the squad improves, the success comes back, and then their investment kind of becomes a more profitable business where they can offload it. So yes, I think we're probably looking at a minimum of 2-3 years. That's just my opinion. Hopefully longer if things continue to be successful and they're invested and actually have a passion in the project and they want to continue their relationship with Milan, then by all means, let's hope it continues. But yeah, I think we're probably looking at a three-year window roughly. And then Kalinic and Bacca, if they will both be offloaded this window, I think it all depends on demand. I think if they've both been linked with exits. Kalinic has been linked with Atletico Madrid, surprisingly. Bacca with a return to Villarreal. If the interest is there, then hopefully, fingers crossed, the negotiations can lead to some sort of compromise and we can get rid of them both. The problem that I think will arise if those kind of deals hit snags, I think Silva's probably more sort of a more attractive proposition. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's issues with one of those two and then Silva comes into play and we may offload him instead. That's not what I want to see. I hope Silva gets at least another season just to kind of prove himself that he can deliver at this level. But yeah, fingers crossed it is Kalinic and Bacca, and those sales will then hopefully cover the kind of spending that we're doing elsewhere. And then Moz had one final one. If Gonzalo arrives, knock on wood, do you think Gattuso plays 2 forwards, maybe plays Silva as a support striker, or do you think the 4-3-3 is here to stay? I personally think the 4-3-3 is here to stay. Now, we did see with Silva that he is capable of dropping deep, creating and kind of building up attacks and linking play up. So yes, I do feel that is an option that should be used next season. But for me, I think if you've got Çalhanoğlu and Suso on your side and they're on form, then you've obviously got a settled three with Bonaventura, Biglia and Kessie in the midfield three, then you've kind of got the core basis of what we've been playing with for so long. So I think that probably will be the same that we'll go with. But having that option of having Higuain up top with a support striker is definitely something new, and Gattuso should definitely explore it. So we'll have to wait and see if he does that. At Navjot4664, Milan is making signings, but we still seem to have no direction in midfield. None of our midfielders are world class, and we don't seem interested in signing anyone in the playmaker profile. Your take on this, please. Navjot, completely agree with you. I think we are far off from where we need to be in midfield. We have got a balance to it, I think, which was probably missing before. We kind of have fixed roles and a bit more direction in what we're trying to do, in terms of Biglia being that kind of midfield enforcer, dropping back and providing that defensive shield, Kessie being that box-to-box player, and Bonaventura being the creative spark through the middle. So I think in terms of designated roles and what the team is supposed to be doing, I think we've improved. But yeah, the quality to kind of take it to the next level isn't really there. And in terms of the creativity and the playmaker role, completely agree. I think we need to add something new to that department. And again, fingers crossed we can do that before the deadline. But we've obviously got our hands full at the moment with this other deal that needs to go through first before the rest can follow. So yeah, let's hope that the midfield is addressed before the window closes. And then finally, at John Sis, regarding the Gattuso-Conte situation, Gattuso has done nothing to warrant a dismissal, but does a coach like Conte come around every day? Does Conte have the ability to lure players of a higher quality to Milan? John, I completely agree with your point. I do get it. You know, you look at Conte and what he's achieved in his career, and you kind of think that he may well be the man that could take us to the next level. And yes, I think his reputation, his profile would probably grant or warrant the top players and the high-profile players to come to Milan. But I'm putting all my eggs in one basket. I'm firmly getting behind Gattuso on this one. I think he has the requisite passion. He has the best interest of the club at heart. He knows the club inside out. I think he is the man. I want him to almost become our Conte. I think they resemble each other quite well. I think there's big similarities between the two. And I fingers crossed Gattuso gets the time and the opportunity to kind of flourish into the top level manager that we all hope he can be. So let's hope that he's the man to deliver. But yeah, I think Conte will all probably be there in the background. If things don't go well, then you never know. Elliott might get itchy fingers and decide to make a change. So we'll have to keep on top of that and see if a change is made or not. Right, guys, that's a wrap for this podcast. I want to say thank you again to everyone that sent in questions, that voted in on the polls, that has been asking questions over the summer about when the podcast is returning. All those that gave me feedback when I asked what you wanted to see from the podcast, please do keep it coming in. You can find us at Milan Talk 1 on Twitter and Facebook. Obviously, you're here on YouTube, so you know where to find us with the latest videos. As I mentioned earlier, we will have a lot more content coming out this season. Fingers crossed, you know, this isn't a full-time job for me, so I've got to balance stuff, and hopefully I will be able to provide the content, and we can all have a lot of engaging and great conversations across the season. But for now, it's a wrap. Look forward to hearing from you in the build-up to the new season. We will have a season preview for you, and then we'll get straight stuck into the action when we take on Genoa in the first game of the season on August 19th. Until then, thanks for tuning in. Appreciate the support as always, and Forza Milan.